I'm going to be as brief as I can in this tutorial, but I'm going to be talking about two things. First is the parking garage, just introducing you to the actual Rhino file for the parking garage. And then I'm going to explain a concept called blocks. It's a way to insert a file and keep it as a group and be able to place it and rotate it as a group many times. So this is going to be uploaded to Canvas. It's the parking garage.3dm file. And this is exactly how we described it in class. The only thing you have to sort of conceptually wrap your head around is that there's only one entry and exit to the parking garage, for cars at least. And you have to be paying attention to which side this is, open on. So there's a two-way ramp here that goes to the next level. And the other thing you have to pay attention to is that there's no parking at the first floor. So it looks like, the ground should be here, but these are actually those ventilation or circulation towers, which allow air to circulate through your garage because it gets really dangerous, especially at these lower levels with these like car fumes and stuff. So if I select the first floor and I hide it, you can actually see the layout of the parking garage. You can go to a top view and you can actually get a perfect plan from this by making 2D. I've also uploaded a JPEG for you to the AE Studio website, and so you can, or maybe it's the blog, the AE Design Software blog. But that is essentially the file for the parking garage. It's pretty straightforward, pretty similar to what we went over in class. Now I'm going to talk about blocks and how we're actually going to utilize blocks, which is a way of inserting files into Rhino or into other Rhino files. How we can use that to our advantage with this parking garage. So here I'm in an example of a file. I've turned all the tower off right now just so I can see what's going on. I've also turned the site off here, but this is north. Now I'm going to run a command called insert. And if you don't have any blocks loaded, you won't see any names prompt here. In your file, you might actually see a couple names here, and I'll show you how you can manage those later. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the open button here, and I'm going to navigate to where that parking garage file is. Now you have to download it off of Canvas first, and then we're going to hit open. You can keep it as parking garage, and you can actually keep all of these files the same. So reading linked blocks from files, we don't really have to deal with that. Block definition type, you can actually link blocks, so you can import them essentially like a linked file, like you're using in the work session files. This is a workaround actually for your collaboration methods, so you can export your files as a 3DM, upload it to somewhere like Box or Google Drive. Just give it the same name, and then your partners can download them and then insert them as linked blocks. And you just keep overwriting that file whenever you download it or whenever your partners download it, and it will refresh. I don't think anybody's going to necessarily use that, but it is a very quick way to collaborate. I'm going to hit OK there, and on the insert as, I'm going to keep this as a block instance, and I'm going to not turn on the insertion point. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to keep the scale uniform, and I'm not going to prompt for anything else. So we're going to hit OK there. And you can see what happens is that I can see the parking garage populating at the same origin, right? It's literally the file slapping on top of the file. And that's great, except it's not quite on the grid. So here's where we get into the benefits of blocks, is that this is an entire object. And not only is it an entire object, it's an entire object that I can edit, and all of the ones that are of this block change the same way. So you don't really have to modify the parking garage, but in the future, if you're using Rhino and you have a bunch of columns or something, you want to change all of their widths or something, if you import them as blocks and you change the width of one, you can change the width of all of them. So if you double click on a block, or if you run the block edit command and you select the block, it's going to allow you to just edit the geometry of the block, right? I can't hit anything else in the file. Now you're probably not going to do this very often, but the secondary benefit is that this is all a group. So I can mirror this. Let's turn the copy off. And so if you need your parking garage entrance to open here, you just have to mirror the block, right? So here I'll Control Z to unmirror it, and you can see there's the option. oh sorry, there's the opening on the other side. And I can also rotate at 90 degrees, all as a single object, right? So there's, you know, probably 100 pieces of geometry in there, but they're all one thing. So I can also move this as a single object, and so if I want my entrance ramp, you can see there's the opening. If I want it to be on, you know, this corner of the site, this is really the only location where that can go. You know, it can move 25 feet this way. It can actually move 50 feet this way. But instead of just, you know, generically importing the block, you're going to have to do a slight modification by mirroring it or rotating it and then moving it. I'm going to show you one more thing with blocks. Sorry, I'm going to run the insert command here, and we're just going to place another one. So you can see I didn't ask for the prompt there. I'm going to run that same command again, insert, and I'm going to turn prompt on. And now it's asking me where to put it, right? I'm just going to put it off to the side here. And then I'm going to double click and just change some of the geometry. And then once I change something in here, by the way, this block edit pop-up, you can add objects, so you can actually add, you know, like the site, or you can add anything to them. And you can remove objects as well. You can also reset the base point. But you can have nested blocks, so you might see multiple things in here when you get into more complex files. I don't think we're going to get that complex this semester. But let's just hit OK here, and you can see that I changed one, it also changed the other. So just be aware, if you're using blocks and you edit one block, it's going to change the other block. It's usually a benefit, but you can also run a explode block command, and that will just make this geometry. And so now if I edit this, you can see it's not editing that. So let's just go back until that didn't happen. And the last thing I'll show you here is actually one more thing. It's about layers. So whenever you insert a block, it has layers sort of inside that file already. So if you have the same named layers, it will actually go onto those same layers. So, you know, in this file I already had a parking layer, so all of this stuff was adjusted to the parking layer. Now you have to be aware that the geometry inside the block can be on a different layer. The block itself is all on the parking layer, so if I select the block, you can see it pops up as parking. But if I edit the block and I change this to, say, let's make this layer 4, and I hit OK, if I hide layer 4, you can see that that goes away. But also if I hide parking, so let's go to annotations here, let's hide parking, all of it hides. So you do have to sort of pay attention to what's what. And again, we're really not going to get that involved in blocks, but I just wanted to mention that to you. So make sure you're paying attention to what layer your block is on, and you might have accidentally changed the geometry, or if you're adding something to a block and your active layer is on something weird, and you try to, you know, turn it off, and it might go away. So just pay attention to what layers you're placing. So the real last thing I'll show you is if I run the block manager command, you can actually see there are a few options here. Now we don't need this parking layout, so I'm going to delete this. And it didn't tell me there were any in the file. Now if I select the parking garage and I hit delete, it says there's one instance of this model. If you delete it, you're also going to delete that block. So I'm going to hit delete here, and you can see that it is gone. So if you do have a parking garage already in there, I would recommend just deleting it and then following this process. 1, so you can learn that process, but 2, so you have the most updated parking garage model. So again, the insert command is your friend here. Go ahead and run the insert command, hit the open button, and then select parking garage. And you have a block.